You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hello everybody, welcome to today's episode of Ask Drone U. You can see things look a little bit different here at the desk.
A little bit
different.
A little bit different.
Older, more distinguished gentlemen than what you're used to.
Yeah.
Anyways, Paul's on the road. He's headed to a mapping class in Las Vegas. We're wishing him safe travel, and we're glad that Vic is here with us. We've got a special show today that Vic's gonna run through a bunch of information for us from the ULC, which he'll go into a little bit more about what that means. Before we get started, we do want to welcome today's sponsor, which is GPC. We're very thankful for all the help that they've given Drone U over the years. And if you want to get a case for your drone, check them out, GPC, and use the code DroneU15, and you're going to get a good discount on that. So check them out whenever you get an opportunity to buy a case.
Yep.
So Vic, Uniform Law Commission. I have to admit, folks, I didn't really know what this was, or at least what I should say is I didn't know what they did. And so fortunately, Vic loves this stuff, I'm gonna assume, because you do so much of it. You're
fun.
Like, you dig into this stuff like you love it, so you must love it.
I do.
And so he was kind of telling me a little bit about it. It's really interesting, actually, how much they've done for really more than a century for our country, and they continue to do. They actually play a pretty important role.
They do. They do. They basically, what the ULC does is, as this name implies, uniform law. They'll take a law, but it's called an act, and kind of set the framework for certain laws that states can then adopt. So that way, there's two neighboring states aren't going to have drastically different laws about the same subject. So just to try to keep a little bit of continuity across states in the nation. Which
I'm actually encouraged to hear. I mean, I don't know, maybe a lot more of you know that this is going on. But I'm actually encouraged to hear that activity is occurring to try to keep things as uniform as possible between states. There's a myriad of different subject matter that would be a benefit from, and you were kind of showing me some of those things. But as it relates to drones, what's going on with the ULC?
Some of you probably remember that in March of last year, they put out a draft that was horrific. There's really no better way to describe it. What they're trying to do is called the Tort Law Relating to Drones Act. And tort is not criminal, it's civil law. So the original was basically, hey, you fly over my house, I can sue you. There had to be no damage because it was per se or per se. And it just, the act itself was then the violation.
Right.
So there was no damage, no nothing. To their benefit, they had a meeting in, I believe, July this year in Louisville, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. They have the ULC's annual meeting. And the way it works is when a committee will then read their law that they're working on, act. I'm going to say law, it's easier that way. It's not technically a law, but they have the first reading of their act, their law, their proposal, their draft, to the entire. It's the ULC is committee members from each state, and then Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, and one other one. Sorry, I forgot which other one.
They have various committees for the various acts that they're working on. Correct.
But they all get together and they read their stuff first, and they take input from the other commission members.
Okay.
Not the committee members. And then they go take all that information and then redraft their draft, which they then dropped yesterday. The latest draft for their meeting in March 1st and 2nd in D.C. Of this year. So just a few days away.
Yeah, so it's coming up real quick. If we can go back, I'm going based on my curiosity.
No worries.
You mentioned what happened previously and how bad it was.
Oh, it was horrific.
What happened to that? Did they take comments and actually respond to them in a positive way?
They took comments and, to the best of my knowledge, reading this, threw it away and started over.
Well, good for them.
No,
right?
it really was. It was great for them. I really appreciate what you guys did. I have a funny feeling, as with most cases, because I work with a lot of different cities and things like that, when they're trying to craft or draft an ordinance or a bill or a law about something they know absolutely nothing about, this tends to happen.
Right.
It's just this, drones, and then they go to town trying to get it. Banned is probably a strong word, but in many instances it basically is a de facto ban.
Yeah, and some would go so far as to be comfortable using the word ban, I would imagine, because we get a lot of emails from folks like you, and we appreciate it because you kind of keep us connected to what's going on around the country. And then we give that to Vic and say, please help these folks, save us from this particular city council or whatever. Sure. Yeah, and it's actually worked really well. So keep sending those in when you hear about those things. Let us know. It's really important. And
Network of Drone Enthusiasts, which is the DJI-sponsored thing, also works really well in this arena as well. Yeah, they do a lot of great work.
Cool. Well, let's see. Let's dig into, I guess, the current draft. Sure. Is that kind of what you want to do?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. A couple of quick thank yous, first of all.
Sure.
And again, the commission, thank you very much for just basically wadding up that first draft and starting over. That first draft literally had no middle ground for us to work with at all.
Almost to the point of shutting the industry down.
Oh, it would have shut the industry.
Might be extreme,
it had the capability of shutting the industry down in certain cities or states. Absolutely, 100%.
So you can see the importance of this.
Because we would have been sued for anything. Yeah. Flying over somebody's property, we could have been sued if a state had then adopted this rule. But they went in, and we'll get into it here in a bit, but they went in, they totally redrafted everything, including putting some rights in for us. So that is huge, and thank you very much for that. Also, we had a lot of different organizations and companies, because of this, send emails and letters to the committee, and of that was White Fox Defense Technologies, sent them a letter in opposition. In October of last year, a conglomerate of different industry leaders also sent something in saying, hey, guys, come on. They actually even went as far as to take their draft and strike stuff out. It was great. It was fun to read. In that list was DJI, AMA, BNSF, Skyward, AUVSI, and of course Kitty Hawk. When news agencies got together and did the same thing last year, then let's see, the Commercial Drone Alliance did that. Mickey Ostreicher from the General Counsel of National Press Photographers Association did that. Amazon, even though Amazon was part of the first, the big letter that everybody signed, they actually went ahead and sent themselves another letter in. The DOT and the FAA sent a joint letter and said, hey guys, time out.
Let's rethink this.
Yeah. And then a company called NetChoice did the same thing. But I think even more important than that was all the people like you guys and gals who took the time to either follow the current committee, which we'll show you how to do that here in a little bit later, and even write emails.
Yeah, so I mean, if you wonder, do my letters make a difference? And I know we all wonder that when it comes to the various legislation that we're interested in. This appears to be an example of where it did.
Huge difference. Yeah. Huge difference. In the community and the industry rallying together over this.
Absolutely.
Probably saved it.
Yeah, and obviously I think that speaks to the kind of community that we have and the way that it was communicated, respectfully, points made, here's why, et cetera, et cetera.
I would imagine some of them weren't very respectful, but for the most part.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. Every industry has the few that are there.
That's true.
But before we get into the actual new draft, I want to talk a little bit because there's a lot of confusion about what actually tort is. And including, I had no idea what tort was when we started this March last year, so I had to look it up. But so I went to uslegal.com and asked, and say, hey, what's tort? Tort refers to civil wrongs as opposed to criminal offenses for which there is a legal remedy for harm caused. Tort law is created through judges, which is called common law, by the legislature, which is statutory law. The primary aim of tort law is to provide relief for damages incurred and deter others from committing the same harm. Basically, it's civil, so you sue people for things.
Yeah, so you fly over somebody's house, they decide to sue you, judge gives them whatever, $1 million.
Right. So
then the idea is that no one else is going to risk it because they don't want to be charged $1 million for flying over someone's house.
Right. And it's not a national airspace system issue. It's not an FAA preemptive issue because it's civil, and that the FAA has nothing to do with civil penalties.
Wow. Okay.
So in Congress has nothing to do with the ULC. So everybody say, hey, right, Congress, hey, the FAA, you can't do that. FAA preemption. Well, it's a good idea in many cases, but in this instance, it's nothing.
Wow.
Nothing.
Law is complex.
Law is complex, and I'm
suffice it to say.
I enjoy being able to get into it without having to worry about practicing it. Let me put it that way. So we can go ahead and get into the new draft now.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of take each section a little bit at a time, talk a little bit about it. We're not even going to discuss the older one, other than what we already have, because it's done. It's gone.
Right.
The biggest change is the new draft is 5 pages, the old draft was 10 pages. So anytime you can take a legal document and cut it in half.
Almost never happens.
I'm all good for that. But the majority of the stuff taken out was definitions. They're now just 2 definitions in the new one. And they might add a third, we'll get to that. All the references that were in the original draft are been taken out. So the scope has pretty much stayed the same. It's just standard. It talks about what it is. Let me get over to the actual what it says here. The scope is it's just what it is. It applies to unmanned aircraft operations and the acts of those who operate and are affected by such operation. So it just talks about who is affected by the act.
And it's a pretty broad scope.
Oh, hugely broad scope.
So, which I think is important to understand that. They're keeping it broad. Which means it would impact everything and everybody as it relates to drones.
And including drone operators, because they have put protections for drone operators in the new draft. So we'll get to that, though. The biggest change is the number of definitions. And they added 2 persons and unmanned aircraft. Unmanned aircraft is the standard definition we see all over the place. They also added the word drone to it as a reference. But other than that, it's always the same.
Which some old military guys might not like, right?
Embrace and educate. That's me. They're drones. I mean, we're Drone U. The Drone Alliance. I mean, we're drones. Let's just that battleship has sailed.
Okay, good, because we haven't had an email on that in a while. But we used to get more of them. We used to get more of them. It's not
over.
A drone.
If you don't want to use the word drone, don't. But don't get mad at everybody else. The funny thing is, under definition of person, they added the words governmental entity. So that would mean, as a person operating the drone, if you've got a government entity person operating the drone, they can then be liable for tort. So
meaning the agency.
The government agency could be liable for tort. So to me, it was, okay, why, if you're going to have government entities pass this bill or write a bill based on this draft, why include them in person?
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounded funny to me. It makes no difference one way or the other, really, other than the fact that it opens them up. In Section 4, Section 2 is definition, Section 3 was scope, and Section 1 was just their title. Section 4 is unmanned aircraft and state tort law. That's the title. And there's a few in there that really don't mean that much. So we'll have a link to this once it's not even on the ULC site yet, so we got to wait for that. I did post a link, and if you're in the legal group or the commercial group or Drone U group on Facebook, in the file section, this has been posted. Cool. But the other ones I haven't. Colorado Airline Media Pros, but in Section C, this is under exceptions. So except as otherwise provided, the common law and statutory tort law shall apply to a person who operates aircraft within. In C, it says a person who operates unmanned aircraft may assert a common law or statutory privilege, defense, or immunity otherwise available in response to a tort claim relating to that person's operation of the aircraft. Now, to me, and again, this is a layman reading this, I do not have a law degree, it seems to me that if you've got your 107, that would be a statutory privilege because you're allowed to do that.
Correct.
Once the new rules come out from the NPRM where the 101 or 336, although it's not 336, but whatever that then the next iteration becomes of 336, they'll have the permission to fly.
Okay.
So, and maybe I'm reading this wrong. If you want to comment wherever or send us an email and let me know I'm wrong, but I think I'm right on this.
So just to make sure I understand and it's clear that we're saying that someone that has a 107, that would supersede.
That would be a defense.
A defense.
Yeah, which means you can still be sued. I can sue you for flying over my house and doing one of the things we're going to talk about here in a bit. But then I can say, go before the judge and you say, 107, here's my blue card.
Okay.
And the judge can say yes or no.
Interesting.
That's how I'm reading it.
Okay.
So if that's how the committee meant, then thank you very much for that. And again, it's just some of the other stuff. A, B, C, and D, you can read into that. It's really not that big a deal. It's just fairly standard language.
Okay.
From what I've been able to find. Section 5 is titled airspace intrusions. Now,
which is a scary phrase.
It's a very scary
just in and of itself, actually.
But they get into the definitions of it, and it's not so bad.
Okay.
I'll read the first A. It says, an aerial trespass occurs, and they use aerial trespass in the description, but aerial intrusion in the title. An aerial trespass occurs when a person intentionally and without consent of the landowner operates an unmanned aircraft in the airspace over the landowner's property, and by doing so causes substantial interference. Now that's key in there. Substantial interference with the use and enjoyment of the property. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Attorneys go to work.
Attorneys go to work.
What is substantial interference?
I would love to see a definition of that somewhere in the article.
Absolutely.
In the draft. Can it be defined without an actual court case? I don't know. And substantial interference is going to be so different from incurrence to incurrence.
And those words are so big. I mean, okay, so what is substantial? It's a relative term. Interference of what?
Relative term.
what are we interfering in on? Wow.
So you're using a substantial modifier. Two basically very broad terms. One of the modifier in and of itself is broad. So it's like if you're modifying a broad term with a broad modifier, where does that end?
Yeah, I mean, this person was flying over my house. They interfered substantially with my ability to watch the football game.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
what does that mean? What does that mean? So I would love to see a definition, and then again, it's repeated in B. The determination of whether an unmanned aircraft's operation over property has caused substantial interference with the use and enjoyment of the property shall be based, so they do give it a definition, but it's still really broad, shall be based upon review of the totality of the circumstances. So what I really like about adding the word totality is that we give 10 circumstances.
Okay.
So they have to do the totality of the circumstances.
What's just a couple examples?
Okay, a couple examples. The amount of time spent, the amount of time the aircraft was operated over, the altitude, the number of times, whether or not the landowner usually allows it is one.
Interesting.
Whether the operation caused physical damage to a person or property. I mean, if you cause physical damage, you know what? You need to take care of that.
Absolutely.
So I understand that part of it.
Have insurance, by the way.
Have insurance, yes. Whether the operation caused economic damages. Now, this is interesting. 7 reads, whether the operation of unmanned aircraft caused economic damages. This could go back to Cosby, the chicken farmer in North Carolina, who was referenced in the original draft, which I thought was kind of funny. That was sort of a lot of it was based on the Cosby decision.
Talk about reaction.
Reactionary.
That's okay.
Huge.
Things are settling.
Things are settling. And the other thing when I read this that popped into my mind was you've got a lot of animal rights activists who will take a drone and either harass a farmer or, maybe they're doing good. I don't know. We're not going to get into that right now. But if they then put out a video that shows that industry, that farmer, that rancher in a bad light, do they cause substantial economic injury?
It could be argued.
It could be argued. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Time of day, and this one's kind of funny, whether an individual on the land saw or heard the unmanned aircraft while it was over his property. If you didn't hear it or see it,
well, so the thing is your neighbor tells you, hey, did you know there was a drone flying over your house?
There you go. That could be it.
Oh, I'm going to sue.
Yep.
I have a witness.
Find that drone. That's right. Find that drone operator.
So that
Good luck.
says you can't do that, apparently.
Although with remote ID, this could be a reality at some point.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to one, which is number 4, which is confusing and really, really needs to be fixed and part of the totality of the circumstances. Number 4 reads, part of the totality is whether the unmanned aircraft recorded or captured video, audio, or photographs while in operation over the property. To me, that needs to have the inclusion of the property of the landowner who is having the problem. In question. That's the way to put it. Because if and I don't shoot real estate, but I might shoot something else, like let's say I'm shooting a big apartment complex for one of my clients, I'm over somebody else's property because I got to get back to shoot that image.
Right.
Or building, whatever I'm shooting. I am recording and I'm capturing video. I'm not capturing audio, photographs and video. It doesn't say, I'm doing that, but according to this, then now I'm liable.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
That's very poorly written.
A really important point. So in your letters,
definitely want to do that.
Make sure that point's in there.
Exactly. Now, intrusion on land is is the section 6, and there's some really, really good wording in here, and there's some really good exceptions for drone operators in here. So the intrusion of land, except as provided in subsection B, which we'll get to, which is the exceptions, a person who without permission intentionally lands an unmanned aircraft on land of another, or who intentionally causes an unmanned aircraft to come into physical contact with a structure, plant life, which I'll get to in a minute, or individual on the land of another commits trespass to land. Okay, so you've got the intentionality of it, which is great. Plant life, that means if you land in the grass.
It is plant life.
That's really broad. We'll get back to the broad again.
Make sure there's hardscape.
Land on the concrete, land on the roof.
That's right.
Don't land on the person. It talks about subsection B. Trespass to land does not occur under subsection A, which we just read, when. And there's two instances. If the unmanned aircraft operator is forced to land because of unexpected circumstances, you got Flight for Life flying over at 100 feet because they got to get somebody to the hospital. You put it on the dirt. I mean, you might even use kill switch and put it on the dirt. Or if you have a malfunction or otherwise beyond the operator's control. So you do have those two exceptions. And again, this is just a draft, so keep an eye on things. But those two exceptions are also then defensible.
Okay.
You can say, hey, you know what? My battery died. You got your flight records. And if it's on pieces on the ground, you did not intentionally do it. Odds are. So Section 6 is pretty decent, and C is fair. A person asserting that privilege, and B is liable for any damage. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean that's just how it works.
I would think the existing laws support that.
And we'll get to that, but yes, existing laws support pretty much all of this.
Right. So the intrusion on land, it seems to be common sense.
It does. It is common sense and neighborly.
Yeah.
And which also gets to Section 7, which we talked about a little bit earlier.
Let's get to that because they do kind of go together.
And also, actually before that, intrusion on land, D, regardless of how it came into rest, a landowner shall not unreasonably refuse a request to return the unmanned aircraft or permit the operator to recover the drone. So that's in there as well, which then leads into Section 7. So that's kind of interesting. That's kind of a nice segue from 6 to 7. And there's one really great, which I'd like to see expanded, but really great part of Section 7, landowners' duties and responsibilities. So that was not into the original at all. It was all drone related. It was all drones are bad, drones are bad, drones are bad. But Section 7 is entitled Landowner Duties and Responsibilities. A is a landowner shall act with reasonable care in relation to known unmanned aircraft operating the navigable airspace over the landowner's property. Now that's known. Okay. B is awesome. Is awesome. And I'm super glad it's in this. But B, I'll read it verbatim. A landowner shall not take any action intended to interfere with the flight of an unmanned aircraft over a landowner's property.
I.e., don't shoot it down.
Yeah, don't shoot it down. Don't throw a net on it. Don't hose it down.
Don't throw a football at it.
Don't throw a football. Don't throw your child at it. Whatever.
Right.
Your cat. This is huge for us, and this I really appreciate the committee putting this in because obviously, as you guys know, and if you follow me, you know that what's going on with people getting shot down is more and more frequent.
What are the odds of the states actually going along with this?
Good question.
That's
they don't have to.
That's going to be interesting.
They don't have to. I would like to see it.
Yeah.
I would like to see it. But then also it gives the landowners a little bit of a nice thing here. It says the landowner owes no duty to ensure the airspace above landowner's property is free from natural or artificial obstructions. It's like, it's not, I don't have to worry about, I don't have to clear my land so a drone can fly over it. And that is,
of course,
that's perfect.
So one way, it's going to be hard in New Mexico, but in areas you have a canopy of trees, right? And that kind of protects.
In Colorado we do, all over the East Coast, the Midwest. Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of that going
on. A lot of that going on out there. Section 8 is going to be, Section 8 is going to be the sticky part because it deals with the violations of privacy. So Section 8 is unmanned aircraft and violations of privacy. I think whether it passes out like this, whether it changes, whether, it's going to take a Supreme Court decision on privacy and drones specifically, to finally lay this to rest. We can use the existing privacy laws, like you can drive down, you can't, if you're on somebody's driving down the road or on the sidewalk, you can look in their window, they have no expectation of privacy. From the air, they have no expectation of privacy in their backyard. I've actually argued that point with a couple of city attorneys. They see it differently with drones, which is fine, which is why I think it's going to take.
Even if they say that based on what? I mean, they can see it differently.
Yeah, they can see it differently, and they do, at least the latest one I talked to did. He said, well, I'll have to look into it a little bit deeper. So there are, Riley and Sorolla were the two big ones.
Okay.
Which, if you can look that up if you want to, or you may already know it since we use it all the time. One of the issues I have here with B1 in Section 8 is, and again, it's the totality. So they do use the totality wording, which is really nice. The privacy related shall be based on a review of the totality of the circumstances, including. Now, this doesn't say only. It's not inclusive. It's inclusive. It's not just total. It's not only. But one is whether by hovering or repeated flights, the unmanned aircraft was likely to have provided the operator with the opportunity to use an unmanned aircraft to view, listen, record, capture, blah, blah, blah.
Something they shouldn't have.
Right. But that is of individuals who are present at that place and time. So it is at least specific to the landowner in this particular instance. But I have the opportunity. If I'm over your property and I've got control of my gimbal, I have the opportunity. So that scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then two is whether the operator made statements or took other overt actions to indicate a desire to use an unmanned aircraft to infringe upon the rights of privacy recognized in X state, whatever state that is crafted to. So if you're taking the totality of this, then I'm likely, but did I show a desire? Did I show an intent?
Yeah.
So the two of them together, I think, would be okay, but I'm not real happy with one. And the other issue with Section 8.1 is First Amendment issues. Because there's definitely First Amendment issues in this.
Absolutely.
Which is why the news agencies went so hard against the first draft. I'd like to see them address this as well. Section 9 is a no-brainer. It basically talks about negligent operation of an unmanned aircraft, and it basically says don't be stupid. If you're stupid, you can be sued, which, hey, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, negligence is just about always going to get you in some form of trouble.
Oh, heck yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. In one way or another, negligence can get you in big doo-doo.
Yeah, it's going to get you. Well, it's interesting. I know you're going to kind of run through how folks can follow this.
Yeah, and they also have some suggested actions, which they're going to take up in Washington next month.
So there's not a lot of time.
There's not a lot of time, so get on this, and we're going to push this out very quickly. But Sections 9 was negligent, 10, 11, 12, and 13, that's basically just standard ULC provision language, so we don't have to worry about that part of it.
Okay. So one of the things that we were talking about as it relates to all this, and it's a pipe dream, particularly of the way that our country is going right now, unfortunately, but just things like getting permission, and then the civility of the person who you're asking for permission, and just, boy, if we could operate that way, civil to one another, respectful of one another, it almost makes all of this not even necessary.
Exactly.
But that's not the world we live in.
It's human nature. Human beings, I think, are pretty good, but a human being may not be.
Yes.
And some people actually see that the other way. So a person is great and people are stupid. Well, I think in some instances that's true too.
Yeah.
But I think in situations like that, people as a whole are afraid of drones, but the person might be stupid about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, and obviously what I just said, it's not that simple.
No.
But at the same time, we can do our part to try to get permission and to be civil and respectful. And
every
all of those
time
things.
we put the bird up, we're ambassadors. We're ambassadors to the industry, and we should always act as such.
Right.
And I think the vast majority of you out there do. It's a lot better than it was 2 years ago. I can see that. I know that. I'm involved in that. It's a lot better than it used to be.
Right.
But one thing real quick is they have what's called an accompanying memo to the draft that they send out to all their members. And there are 5 issues for consideration that they're going to deal with in March. And this is what we need to address. The memo says there are a number of narrow and a number of broader issues to be considered by the committee at the March 2019 meeting. These issues include, number 1 is whether definition of operator should be included in the Act. For me, sure, why not?
Yeah.
The operator is a standard. I mean, I see it in every single thing I deal with. Is the operator is person manipulating controls or whatever. I mean, operator's operator. It really
makes sense.
Makes no sense. I don't care. It can go either way on that one. Number 2, and this actually I called last night and talked to a person we talked about. I didn't ask if I could use his name, so I won't. But great guy, you all know him. Whether the question of self-help, which is in quotation marks, should be explicitly addressed in the Act beyond the provisions included in Section 7. Now, Section 7 was the landowner duties and responsibilities. Self-help is, from what I gathered talking last night with our friend, and what he thinks, and it could go either way. So this is something we need to pay attention to. Self-help means that basically that you see a situation and you take it into your own hands to remedy.
Okay.
So that gets back to the shooting down.
Shooting down, yeah.
So does that mean that they're going to say, okay, you can't use self-help to terminate a flight?
Right.
Or does that mean they're going to say you can use self-help to terminate a flight that you see as an immediate danger?
Exactly. Like if
So
you
what
feel,
does that mean?
Right, and that, boy, that opens up a lot of things.
Yeah.
For example, if they do go the route of something like, if you feel like you're in danger, self-help is allowed.
Self-help is allowed.
Then, oh boy.
Yeah.
I don't think they would do that.
He and I agreed last night talking, it's probably not the direction they're
Right.
going.
I'd
But
be
we do need to
surprised.
pay attention to that.
Sure.
That could go either way, and given the interaction I've had, well, I haven't had a lot of interaction with the committee. I've had one person who emailed me after I sent them an email and thanked me. I don't know, but it could go either way, but I'd be very surprised if it did come out. It's like, yeah, shoot them down if you're in danger.
Well, the language currently says you're not to do that.
And it backs up the current language.
Right.
So, but they could then add the caveat of immediate danger
True.
or whatever. I mean, they're lawyers. They figure out how to say
Anything's
immediate danger.
possible at this point,
27
so,
language. Yep.
So be diligent.
Exactly. Issue 3. Whether 7, which again is section 7 is the landowner rights. Number 7, which imposes duties on landowners without regard to status of the individual in question, should be bracketed because some states still retain common law categories for trespass, licensee, and business invitee. This one we talked about. Basically, it means do we really have to give up? How can I say this without getting people mad? Well, I'm going to anyway. I can see this from both sides. Let me just put it that way. As a drone operator, I want to be able to go get my drone back if it lands, if I have to land it, if I have a malfunction, if there's a safety issue, and I got to put it in the dirt, whatever. I want to be able to go get that drone back.
And by that you mean I want to have the right.
I want to have the right to go onto that land and pick it up.
Right. Or at least at a minimum have them give it back to you.
Exactly.
Whether you go on their land or not.
As a landowner and as a family of large landowner in the South, I'm not sure I necessarily want somebody on my land to retrieve something if they're being malfeasant. We'll get back to the, some of the animal rights activists will use it for that. And so, you know what, if I'm a pig farmer and they're using a drone to do something bad to me,
Nefarious
even if it's not bad, if I'm doing a perfectly legal, perfectly safe operation, they may do something and make it, editing. I can edit anything to make it look good or bad, so can everybody else here.
Absolutely.
I don't want them coming on my land to get their drone back. It's like, you want it? Too bad, so sad.
Right.
That's my right as a landowner.
Like, what drone?
Yeah, what drone? The one my pigs just ate?
That's right.
But if I'm filming the cow guy next door and my drone actually falls into the pig pit because it, whatever, I don't know if I want it back if it falls in a pig pit, but if it lands on his land, I want it back. And so that gets back to the whole neighborly, let's be nice thing. So I'm kind of torn on this issue, as a conservative land rights issue person, and as a drone person. Which way do I lean?
Which is to say, I don't think we're going to solve that right now.
Absolutely not going to solve that.
We're going to let that ride.
We're going to let that one ride. Number 4, whether the totality of the circumstances in number 8, which is the privacy provision, should be retained, and if so, whether factors listed should be altered or supplemented. That means you go back to number 8, and there were only really 2 of the privacy issues, and again, it's the intent, the desire. They use the word desire instead of intent in this particular instance. In that one, yeah, I think it should be retained. I think the totality argument should be retained because otherwise it could be just one or the other. And as we mentioned when we were talking about that, if it's just the first one, where it doesn't include the intent, then that could be a problem for a lot of people. So yeah, I think it should be, if we need to add a few extras to make that a little bit safer,
yeah,
sure, but that's the lawyer speak.
At least being given the opportunity to explain yourself, essentially.
Exactly.
Is kind of how I see that.
And even if somebody's being reasonable and they'll let you can show them your card, you can show them your monitor, hey, this is what I was shooting, no worries.
Right.
And the same thing with issue 5 is whether to take the totality of the provisions in section 5. And then section 5 was airspace intrusions. And that was those 10 things that were listed. I definitely think we should keep that as well, because the totality is really a saving grace for us.
It is, yeah.
None of this is going to stop you from getting sued for something, because anybody will sue anything for anybody. Well, not anybody, but you can be sued for anything by somebody.
But the more emboldened they feel to be victorious, the more willing they probably are, including the attorneys who would be behind a lawsuit. If they see that the opportunity is there, then they might be more willing to pursue it.
In some instances, this can be done in small claims if the claim's not big. So then you're your own attorney, and so you can go, Judge, here are these 10 things. I meet 6 of them.
Yeah.
So sorry, and then that judge will say, okay, bye. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
So conclusion on this, I see this as a huge victory for us as drone operators compared to where it was. If this were to pass as written, we could live with it. It would create some issues for some people. I'd definitely like to see some of the things we talked about
some clarity,
defined and clarified.
Yeah,
absolutely. The privacy issue, I really honestly don't think will ever be solved by legislation. It's going to be solved by litigation.
Yeah,
it really will.
Can't disagree with that.
I really can't. And that's just a privacy issue. I mean, the privacy stuff gets in the courts all the time. If this does pass as written, or whatever comes out of next month's meeting in Anchorage, which will be its second reading, because it's read twice in a national convention. It was read in Louisville, it'll be read in Anchorage. Then it becomes, again, I don't want to say law because it's not a law, but we'll just use that word. It becomes an act. I will use act because it then becomes an act that states can use to write their own laws.
And in essence, suggested guidance.
Suggested governance. And so the political subdivisions that then might use this or any other ULC act that comes out can take all of it, part of it, or none of it and write their own. It's just suggested. They have no power of law, but the ULC has a lot of influence.
Right.
A lot of influence.
And we know states are thinking about these things, right? And I think,
absolutely.
I mean, obviously, but many of them, I think they're actually looking for this guidance and hopefully even waiting on it. You're always going to have those, I guess, rogue leaders that are going to kind of do things that they want to do. And
like the mayor of Cherry Hills Village and the entire city council of Telluride, Colorado.
And those are a couple of examples, but they're scattered all over the place.
Oh yeah, that's just Colorado because that's where I'm from.
Right.
But they're all over the place. Newton, Massachusetts, Hempstead, New York.
Yeah, and
Chicago, Illinois. All those, they have those really questionable laws on the books, and actually, Newton, Mass was kicked out. They lost in federal court, which was yay.
Yeah, good. We need more of those because
really
that will discourage others from going through the process and work of doing it in the first place.
Yep.
But
we need to be vigilant, no matter what, vigilant, whatever, or vigilant, if you want to live in a village.
That was a nice way of combining those two words.
There you go. Vigilant. No matter what comes out of committee or what comes out of the Anchorage conference, we need to make sure we understand what it is. We need to be able to then take that. If something arises in a state or city that we live in, we need to then get in touch with the city council, like I'm doing in Thornton, and saying, hey guys, let's talk. I mean, this is what the ULC has suggested. Let's see if we can work around it and figure that out. Because we like what the ULC, or we don't necessarily like what the ULC says, but this is what we can do. So be prepared to be congenial. They don't want somebody come to a meeting going, rah, 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 rah.
Absolutely.
I've seen people do it, and it doesn't work. A lot more flies with honey than vinegar, my mom used to say. Either way, you still get flies, but I never understood that.
What's the seven? There's various iterations of this, but the 73458, there's what you say is only 7% heard, understood, right? And then there's how you say it, 34% understood, and then the higher percentage, 58, whatever it is your body language. And so those former two, the way, the tone and so forth, and your body language speak way louder than the words you say. And I think most of you know that, but it bears repeating in this context.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Body language is everything. So I very strongly suggest you go to one of the Facebook groups I just mentioned and download that and take a look at it, and then submit to whoever the commission, and I'll get you to that point here in a minute, to tell them what you think.
Yeah.
Tell them what you think. Please. It's important. You got to do it fast. Their meeting is March 2nd and 1st, and today's the 20th, so that's what, 9 days? 10 days, because 29 sleep year, isn't it? And so 10 days and 11 days.
And so talking points is I suppose we could use this, right?
You want to address the issues for consideration, but you can use the talking points, the conclusion, and draw your own. This is me. This is my conclusion. This is not
True.
a legal conclusion of anything. This is what I feel, and I think I get a pretty decent handle on it.
Right.
But this is just me talking.
Sure.
Draw your own conclusions.
Sure. Okay.
And I'm sure other people will draw their own conclusion about the property rights that I had.
Absolutely.
So what you need to do is go to uniformlaws.org. It's just uniformlaws.org. Across the top, you'll see a drop-down called Acts. Just click on that. Under Acts again in that drop-down menu is something called In Drafting. So click on In Drafting. And it's a brand new website. So if you've gone to the website before, you're like, which is what I did last night. But once you're in the In Drafting, Acts In Drafting page, just scroll down and you'll see it. It's just Tort Laws Relating to Drone Committee. Click on that, it takes you to their page, and you've got the home page where they have this little description of what they're doing with it and why they're doing it. They have all the committee members, and they have a document page as well, so you can get all the documents. The latest draft is, March 2009 committee meeting draft. It's up. It wasn't up an hour ago when I checked. So it's up. So go there. Go there, click on that, download it. Now, if you go back to the committee page, it says follow committee or unfollow committee. Please follow the committee. You'll get a email every time they do something from a young lady named, I don't know if she's young. I shouldn't be sexist. A lady named Lucy who is the communication director for the ULC or something like that. I can't remember.
Okay.
But she sends you, it's just an informational email. There's nothing to it.
A real easy way to stay connected.
Yeah. And if you want to get in contact with them, there's a contact point at the bottom of the page. It's just info@uniformlaws.org. There's a phone number, and they will get it to the correct person. Everything I've seen pretty much is either email address to Paul Kurtz, who is the chair, or to Anita, I'm going to destroy this name and I shouldn't, I'm sorry, Ramasastri. Ramasastri?
Bless you.
Thank you. She's the president ex officio.
Okay.
Whatever
So what you're saying is that for those that are writing letters, those are the people to
address it to, but send it to info.
Gotcha.
Or you can email it to Lucy.
Okay.
And I'm not saying your last name because I'll destroy it, and I'd rather be informal than stupid looking. So we decided there are about 7 different ways to pronounce your last name.
Right.
So.
At least.
So anyway, I hope this belays a lot of fears that we had last March when we first brought this to everybody's attention. And there are 2 people that brought it to my attention, and you know who you are, and thank you for that, that last March. But I'm really happy with this. Mm-hmm. I want to see more. I want to see some of the little bitty tweaks here and there to get fixed, and then really want to see what the draft is that's going to go to Anchorage next July or this July. But get your stuff in, get your input in, and we may still be able to, and I'm not sure on this, I'll let you guys know later, but we still may be able to address the draft that'll go to Anchorage. I'm thinking probably not, because then they have to meet again. They might do it. They could even do it over the phone. I was part of one of their phone meetings at one point last year, and so it's possible. But get your information in, get your thoughts in. I would say in the next week, by the 27th, 28th.
Yeah.
That'll give them a time to get it before the committee. Because if they get 40 or 50 or 100 or 200 emails on the 29th or the 1st, they meet on the 1st and 2nd. So it's not going to happen. Get them in as soon as you can.
Absolutely. So would you say that the legal Facebook page is the best place to kind of follow this stuff?
I definitely post on it there. I also post on the Commercial UAS Owners Group.
Okay.
Or I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
I should know. I'm an admin. I should know.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're 2 of the more active drone groups on Facebook, so either one of those. And we could put links to those as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. So read it, get your thoughts in there. It shouldn't be that hard to read. It was not like the first one. We had to go through all the references and then reference out their reference and come take a peek. Put your thoughts together. Put your thoughts together effectively, civilly, intelligently.
Yep.
I don't like this. Isn't going to fly.
Well, and hopefully we've given you some good talking points today that you can speak to in your communication to them. And like Vic said, get on. I do want to thank Vic because this dropped yesterday.
It's dropped yesterday afternoon, 2 o'clock.
And so Vic got on it, planned on a half an hour?
I'd say half hour. You can get your
But 2-3 hours later for you, because you were summarizing everything, preparing for this. He was up into the wee hours of the night getting ready for this for you guys. So thank you, Vic. Appreciate you doing that. And guys,
thank you guys.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for listening, for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't, that really helps the show. It helps us spread the word. We want to get this kind of information out to as many people as possible. It's going to help the industry in the long term. So please share. Please leave a review wherever you listen. It doesn't matter. We'd love to hear from you. We do read those, and those things matter. So let us know what you think, what you don't like, what you do like. We love hearing about all of it. And that'll do it for today's show. Thank you. And by the way, don't forget, of course, we will continue to answer questions in the future. Get those in at askdroneu.com. Have a great day.